What's going on, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show where we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your host, Charles Wells, coming at you, and we're gonna continue this little tour around the SWAC that we've been doing. Wednesday, we dropped the East Division preview of the Fall 2021 schedule. So if you want to check that out, if you haven't done so already, that link is down in the description. Also down there in the description with that chilling is the social media pages, facebook.com/swagtalk, twitter.com/swagtalk76, instagram.com/swagtalk, and swagtalk76 at gmail.com is the email address. So if you want to go ahead and get those a like, a follow, or whatever it is, go ahead and do that. Also, check out the podcast. We will be dropping some content in the next week or so. Anchor.fm/swagtalk. You can also find that on Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all that. While you're here, if you haven't done so already, man, go ahead and subscribe. We're at 117 subscribers right now. We'd love to get to like 125 just for, personal gains and goals. So if you haven't subscribed already, why don't you go ahead and do that too. And once you do that, once you share the videos when you watch them, like them, give them that thumbs up, and hit that notification bell to be alerted to any content that I drop, because I will be doing more things on YouTube since we're kind of in the off season. So with that being said, it's Mother's Day, so I want to start this off by wishing my mother, Judy Wells, a happy Mother's Day, and also a happy heavenly Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Patricia Sin. Oh man, I'm getting tongue tied. She passed away a couple weeks ago due to COVID, so I just wanted to shout her out for that. Once again, a happy Heavenly Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Patricia Sin. May you continue to watch over us. So, with that being said, man, let's go ahead and get right into this. We're not going to waste no more of your time, because I know your time is valuable, and I don't want to hold you up on anything. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start this conference preview off with the Alcorn State Braves, who have now moved from the east side to the west side. Multiple time East Division champs. Now they over on the west side, and they're getting their schedule started off on August 28th in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Center Park Stadium, when they take on North Carolina Central Eagles in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. And that game will be on ESPN. This is a game, obviously, the MEAC SWAC Challenge is a game that's always looked forward to. It's kind of like, a good start off to the season. The MEAC has had the edge in that series, but this is a good matchup for both teams. Alcorn getting a chance to hit the ground running against a like opponent, and that's a good start off to their season. So then they have a bye week. September 11th, they take on Northwestern State Demons at home. So that's another good matchup. A good FCS regional matchup at home. So that's a good move right there. Then they go on the road on September 18th to Mobile, Alabama, to take on the South Alabama Jaguars. FBS game. But also, this is a game that's not, impossible to win. So a good early schedule for Alcorn. Not easy, but not like super, super difficult as well. They open up SWAC play on September 25th as they hit the road for now West Division opponent and the spring 2021 West Division champion, Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions. At the bye week, they come home and they face the Grambling Tigers on October 9th. October 16th, they hit the road again to head to Itabena to take on the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley. October 23rd, another road game at Texas Southern in Houston. And they stay on the road on October 30th. They go to Baton Rouge to take on Southern in what will probably be a huge West Division matchup. And their road trip continues as they head to Daytona Beach to take on Bethune-Cookman on November 6th. So you're looking at four consecutive road games. Those are two. I think. I know the Southern game is a road game due to them opting out on COVID. I think the Texas Southern game is as well, but I'm not 100% sure, or it may be valid. But one of those two games is also a road game for that same situation. November 13th, they're at home against Prairie View, and then they close out their season on November 20th at Jackson State in what I still call the Soul Bowl. If you're old school, then you know what I mean. But not a this is not a super duper challenging schedule. I mean, for a team that is the caliber of Alcorn, it is a manageable schedule. They do have a 4-game road stretch with no off week in that, so that that can be a little bit difficult. But they do play Valley and Texas Southern in that stretch. The last 2 games are gonna be tougher at Southern and at Bethune-Cookman. But as we obviously know, Alcorn has had Southern's number for the last few years, so that's a game that is still big on both sides, and especially now that it's a division matchup. So not a terrible schedule. It's definitely a schedule that Alcorn can manage, and I look forward to seeing what they do with that schedule. So now we will move on to our reigning 2021 spring West Division champions, the Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions. And obviously this was kind of the surprise team of the spring in terms of finishing in the division championship. But if you have been following Pine Bluff, you know that they've kind of been building up to this point. In 2019 they actually had a 6-5 season, so that was a good winning season for them after not having a winning season since 2012 when they won the SWAC championship. So they've turned it around, and now we want to see if they can avoid the trend that they had the previous time they won the championship, but they completely fell off the cliff. So we're going to see if they can maintain. And they open up their season at home on September 4th against the Lane College Dragons, Division II opponent. September 18th, they have an early bye week. On September 11th, September 18th, they go to Conway, Arkansas to take on Central Arkansas. And these are, those games that I love to say FCS regional opponents. This is an opponent in their own state, so that's definitely a good matchup. Definitely an opportunity to make some waves in recruiting in the state, and also just to challenge yourself against a very talented opponent. They open up SWAC play on September 25th at home against Alcorn in a game that's definitely going to factor into the West Division race. October 2nd, they head to Prairie View to take on the Prairie View Panthers. October 9th, they go to Montgomery to take on Alabama State. October 16th, they're at home to face Southern in another huge West Division matchup. October 23rd, they go to Little Rock, Arkansas to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's a local FCS Power 5 money game, but it's not in Fayetteville, so at least you got that going for you. October 30th, they go to Houston to take on Texas Southern. November 6th, they play Grambling at home. Florida A&M heads to Pine Bluff to take on the Golden Lions, so the Rattlers will make that trip up to Arkansas on November 13th. And November 20th, they face Alabama A&M in a rematch of the SWAC championship game, which is definitely, if both teams continue to ascend, could be a very huge game at the end of the season. And I mean, you never know. It could be also a possibility of a preview of the SWAC championship if Pine Bluff is able to navigate this schedule. Now, this schedule it has a very challenging portion. I mean, early you have Central Arkansas, Alcorn, Prairie View, Alabama State, and Southern. I'm not really counting the Arkansas game because that's a FBS Power 5 money game. But as far as FCS opponents, that's a tough 5-game stretch. And I think that stretch is what's going to make or break their season. They close out with Texas Southern. That's a game I think they should win. I'm not really trying to do predictions right now, but I'm kind of looking at things ahead of schedule. FAMU and Alabama A&M are 2 very tough games to end the schedule, so they have some really treacherous terrain to navigate. They really can't afford to slip too much, especially early. The Alcorn and Prairie View games are definitely going to go a long way in determining how they handle the SWAC West Division race. So you pretty much know where they stand by the time we get to October. So this is definitely a very it's a nice schedule. I like it. You know, I really not a fan of Power Five FCS Power Five matchups for FCS teams, but you know that's good money. But as far as anything other than that, I'm not really a huge fan of that. But the rest of the schedule is pretty manageable. You have a D2 opponent at home to open up the season and a regional FCS opponent. But you do definitely have a challenging 5 game stretch. So that's going to be the point that they have to navigate to make any kind of headway in the West Division. So next up, we're going to talk about the Grambling State Tigers. Grambling is obviously a team who's in flux. We don't really know right now where they're gonna end up. The spring was definitely not a good spring for them. They finished 0-4 in conference. They had a big COVID issue for most of the season, and obviously they ended the season in the Bayou Classic with not that great of a outing, just to just to say it nicely. But they I still feel like Grambling is gonna be Grambling, but you know this is a team that definitely has some things to work out. They did hire a new offensive coordinator, and you know it remains to be seen if Coach Fobbs will be on the hot seat. Will he be able to recover? So this is a huge season for them to turn around. Outside of that spring season, they had back-to-back 6-5 seasons, so they kind of need to get back to where they were before that. And they open up their season against Eddie George and the Tennessee State Tigers on Sunday, September 5th in the Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. So that's definitely a big game to open up the season. Grambling and Tennessee State are definitely two of the most historical teams in HBCU football history. So this is two programs that's facing off, and this is Eddie George's first game. A lot of eyes are going to be on this game. This is a huge game for Grambling to kind of prove that the spring was just a spring and they can move forward. September 11th, they head to Hattiesburg, Mississippi to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. September 18th, they head to Houston to take on the Houston Cougars. So that's 2 FBS games and 1 FCS non-conference game. They open up conference play on September 25th in Dallas in the State Fair Classic against Prairie View. They host Alabama A&M for their first home game of the season on October 2nd. October 9th, they go to Alcorn. October 16th, they get to play Texas Southern at home for homecoming. They're off on October 23rd. October 30th, they head to Tallahassee to face FAMU in another historical black college football program matchup. This is also a game that I'm looking forward to, especially if Grambling is back on track. November 6th, they're at UAPB. November 13th, they host Bethune-Cookman in their home finale. And then after the traditional bye week, on November 27th, they play Southern in the Bayou Classic, which will be back in New Orleans where it belongs. No offense to Shreveport, but that game belongs in New Orleans. So, obviously, 2 FBS games that, kind of factors into how you look at the season. That Tennessee State game will be a huge game. I think it's going to be a well-attended game. So many eyes are going to be on that game. That's a huge weekend for SWAC football. You have FAMU and Jackson State playing in Miami that Saturday, and then that Sunday you have this game. So a lot of eyes are going to be on this game. It's going to be important for Grambling to make headway on their season. The State Fair Classic is always huge. Grambling's lost 3 in a row to Prairie View at this point, so they definitely need to fix that. Alabama A&M coming to Grambling is a big matchup. Alcorn obviously is a big matchup, so that's a 3-game conference stretch. That's tough. Texas Southern in a bye week, kind of get yourself back together. and they have a strong closeout with 4 strong games against FAMU, Pine Bluff, Bethune-Cookman, and Southern. Two of those 4 are true road games, and then one is a neutral game. But that's still a pretty, 4-hour trip. So that's technically still a road game for them. But schedule is broke up into chunks, and it's I would love to have, if I have a tough schedule, I would love for it to be kind of broken in half, and that's kind of what this is. You have a really tough 3-game stretch. Or if you want to look at it as including the FBS games and the Tennessee State game, then you have 7 games to start your season before your first bye week. If you can manage those 7 and come out on the winning end, then your season will be successful. And then you close out with 4 games that are very, very tough. So this is going to be a schedule that Grambling has to kind of navigate. But I think if anybody can do it and rebound that program is Grambling. I really look forward to seeing how they handle this, because this spring was a really interesting ordeal for them, and it's important for them to prove that the spring was honestly just a spring and they move forward. So now we move on to a team who was also kind of up and down in the spring, but defensively they looked very, very good, and that's Prairie View. And Prairie View for the last few years has always had a really good schedule as far as non-conference games. They play a lot of Southland teams who are teams who are in Texas and Louisiana, and they've had some success, or they've been close in some games. So they open up their season with their usual state Labor Day Classic against Texas Southern on September 4th. September 11th, they go to San Antonio to take on Incarnate Word, which is a Southland opponent. September 18th, they host Houston Baptist, also a Southland opponent. So that's a good FBS game at home. Again, FCS game at home. Again, regional FCS opponents. I'm gonna preach it because that's one of the things I really feel like is important in establishing your program, is to play home games against teams who are in your area that are non-conference FCS teams. So to get at least one of those a year is always a good move. And they have two good FCS regional opponents right there. They'll play their next game on September 25th in Dallas in the State Fair Classic against Grambling. October 2nd, they host Pine Bluff. October 16th, they go to Daytona to take on Bethune-Cookman. October 23rd, they head to Baton Rouge to take on Southern. That should be a big matchup in the West Division. November 6th, after a bye week, they host Alabama State. November 13th, they go to Alcorn. November 20th, they take on Texas A&M in College Station. So that's a Power 5 money game. November 27th, they close out their season at home against Valley. So looking at this schedule, Texas Southern, they played pretty close this year, but that's still a team who is still trying to find their footing. But from Incarnate Word to basically Southern, you can even say Alabama State or Alcorn, this schedule is very, very challenging. There is no real break before they get they have an off week between Southern and Alabama State, so they play pretty much every week except for October 30th. So that's gonna be a challenging thing. They have basically they have 4 games in a row away from home, 1 neutral site game, 3 road games before they come back on November 6th to take on Alabama State, and then they're back on the road again at Alcorn, and then that FBS game against Texas A&M. So that middle portion of the season, basically, I guess you say the early to mid portion of the season from Incarnate Word on down to Alcorn, is going to be challenging. And if they can, again, like I said about Pine Bluff, if they can come out positive on that, then they put themselves in a good opportunity. For once, I would say for once, Prairie View schedule, the conference fate won't be dictated early, but it will again, because they have some very losable games in that middle portion of the SWAC season, and they could easily find themselves out of the race if they slip even once or twice. So, especially with Alcorn coming over, that makes things even more challenging. That's an extra team who is going to contend, and that's an extra body to have to deal with. So, Prairie View again, I've really liked the schedules that these teams have put out. Nobody has really had a ridiculous schedule. I'm not really a fan of two FBS games like Grambling's playing, but most people have had some good FCS matchups on their schedule, so that's what you preach. Especially if you're not playing in the playoffs, you need to have those kind of teams on your schedule to challenge you. And next we move on to Southern University. They open up their season with Troy University, the Trojans, Sunbelt team, FBS opponent. They come home to play Miles College, Division II opponent, on September 11th. September 18th, a home FCS game against McNeese State from the Southland Conference. So again, FCS regional opponents. Everybody's doing that fairly well this year. I'm really liking that. September 25th, they go to Valley. October 9th, they play Texas Southern in Arlington, Texas at Globe Life Park. October 16th, they're at Pine Bluff. October 23rd, they play Prairie View for homecoming. October 30th, they get Alcorn at home. November 6th, they get FAMU at home. November 13th, they get Jackson at home. And after the bye week, they get Grambling in New Orleans in the Bayou Classic on November 27th. Now, this schedule, again, stop me if you heard me say this, this schedule is hard, man. That final stretch from Pine Bluff to the end, it ain't no joke. I know at first when the schedule came out before the spring was put out, nobody really knew how good Pine Bluff would be in the spring. So everybody was kind of looking at from Prairie View on, but you have to count Pine Bluff in this mix. This schedule, something could be out of the SWAC race by October 30th if they're not careful. They do open up at Valley. That's not a hard game, but Valley is always dangerous at home. They play you a lot tougher in Valley than they do at your place. So that's definitely a game that you have to kind of navigate, especially, with a new head coach, but pretty much a similar staff. This is the first time Southern been to Valley since 2015, so you got a lot of guys who never played up there, and Valley got a weird mystique about it sometimes. The non-conference schedule, I like it. FBS money game, Division II home game, and a FCS home game. So Southern has a great home schedule this year for the first time in a long, long time. But that stretch from Pine Bluff to the end is murderer's row. You're playing pretty much every team on that stretch is a contender for their division. Grambling right now is the wild card in that, but that's the Bayou Classic, so you can never count out anything. But for Southern to manage this schedule, they make it through, then they've earned everything that they've gotten, and they really need to slap somebody in the SWAC office for giving them this kind of slate. And they're gonna have to navigate. If they want to be big dogs and contenders, then this is the kind of schedule that you have to navigate. But I would definitely go slap somebody because that's not an easy slate to close out your season. So Southern, you got your work cut out for you. I want to see how you handle that. And now we head to Texas Southern, the team who has not won a game in quite some time. They open up their schedule on September 4th against Prairie View in the Labor Day Classic. That is a home game for them. They go to Baylor on September 11th. After a bye week, they play Rice on September 25th. October 2nd, they play North American University, which is a school from Houston that I have never, ever, ever heard of in my life. Texas Southern always manages to find these kind of teams to put on their schedule from time to time. Obviously, this should be a win for them. It's homecoming. I mean, they haven't won an on-field game in quite a while, but, this is a team, I don't know what they are, who they are, where they're from. I mean, I know they're from Houston, but the mascot is the Stallions. I know that much from looking at the schedule. I don't know how many guys they have on their team. I don't know what they did. They did play Southern Shreveport in the spring, and Southern Shreveport beat them, so that, I don't know if that's good or bad, but Southern Shreveport had just started up their football program, so, take that for what you will. So that should probably be Texas Southern's first win on the field in a long, long time. But you just never know with this team. October 9th, they head to Arlington, Texas to take on Southern. October 16th, they go to Grambling. October 23rd, they host Alcorn. October 30th, they host Pine Bluff. November 6th, they go to Jackson State. November 13th, they host Alabama A&M. And November 20th, they go to Alabama State. So, again, when you're not a good team, every schedule is going to be challenging because you don't really know what to expect from a team, and you don't know how well they're going to compete. They do have some decent pieces. They have had a nice freshman quarterback that they played a little bit last spring, so we'll see if he can continue to grow. But I'm not a fan of this non-conference schedule at all. I mean, obviously, you do have a winnable game, but I don't even think it counts in the standings. So, how much does that really mean? How much is that, that momentum from winning that game? How much is that going to actually carry over? I am not a fan of the two FBS games, especially with one Power 5 and one G5. I'm not really a fan of that, but, they have to do what they have to do. The SWAC slate is tough as usual. They don't play Valley, so that's a game that would probably be one of the few games they would have had an opportunity to be favored in conference play. This is tough. I mean, obviously this is tough, and if they can come out of this with a couple W's, then I think that this team will be on their way to a better 2022. Not much. I don't expect much from them in 2021, but that North American University, I swear that sounds like some made up NCAA 14 team. So, I wish them the luck with that. But that's gonna do it for this show. We'll be back on Wednesday with another video. I haven't really figured out what I want to do yet, but I'm gonna drop a little something for y'all, and we'll have a podcast coming up next week as well. So, with that being said, man, enjoy your Mother's Day. Call your mama if you ain't called her. Tell her you love her. Tell your mother-in-law you love her. Tell your sisters, your aunts, your nieces, your friends, whoever are mothers. Tell them you love them and cherish them every day that you have them, man, because time is fleeting and life is flimsy, as the great Dave Chappelle liked to say. So just enjoy everybody, man. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you guys on the rebound. We out.